Okay, this is Sheets. We are going to be going over the first of what I hope to be many, many sit and goes. And by the time you guys are done with PokerXFactor, hope you're never done with PokerXFactor, but by the time you've been with us a couple of months, I like to think you're going to have a full course in sit and go play. I'm going to go over many different buy-in levels, many different strategies from both advanced to beginner to ultra advanced. I also hope to even have maybe a guest lecturer or two do some sit and goes as well. The way I learned is, I've spoken to what I consider some of the best sit and go players in the world about strategies, and I did a lot of the math work myself. And I think you guys are going to really get a lot out of it. The one I'm going to be over today is a 500 sit and go, which I've picked because I find it particularly instructive on a lot of levels. For those of you that don't know, standard sit and go formula, you really want to be very ultra hyper tight early, and you have to know all of your endgame techniques like the back of your hand. You have to really know when to go all in versus when to fold versus when to call all ins at the end of the sit and goes. As I go through a lot of these, I'm going to go over some of the ways to do that. But one thing, if you could take nothing else, is to remember that sit and goes, I don't know what they are, but they're not poker. Okay, I see a lot of deep stack players, expert type players, take a shot at these sit and goes, and they can't quite figure out why they can't succeed. And you have to remember that this is not normal poker. Okay, these sit and go tournaments, I've won countless sit and goes, never seeing a flop. Okay, just basically folding, and then going all in when I'm supposed to, folding when I'm supposed to, and calling all in when I'm supposed to, and winning them that way. So for those people that get frustrated, if you could just remember that this is a particular skill, having very little to do with your normal poker tournament skills, I think you're going to go a long way in your success in these sit and goes. This is a 500 sit and go, and you're going to see a lot of when I'm discussing a lot of very, very tight play early, and not getting a lot involved in a lot of creative post flop play. Just kind of staying out of the way, just trying to get to that middle game and get to that end game where I know that I'm going to make no mistakes. And you'll see kind of a recurring theme when I go over these tournaments, that once I get to a point where I know that everything I do is going to be 100% correct, I consider the tournament won. Strategically, it's over. You're going to have, you're going to get sucked out on, your cards aren't going to be as good sometimes, but all you can do is put yourself in that situation. And one of the ways that you have to do that is you have to know those endgame techniques down cold, and we are going to make sure that everybody knows them. Some of them are a little more advanced than others, so I don't expect everybody to grasp everything, but I will do the best I can to make it as easy as possible. I'm going to go over what I think is one of the great leaks in most people's sit and go game, and I think this first sit and go is pretty instructive of a lot of concepts. One of these days, I'm going to do a lecture on how to calculate your calculate fold equity and how to calculate when you're supposed to go all in versus when you're supposed to fold. I'm really excited about being able to bring as much as my knowledge as I can to you all. So again, this is very, very typical for me, just doing a lot of folding early. There wasn't really a hand where I could have even justified getting into it, but I've seen people get involved in level 1 with some really, really poor hands, and there's just no need. Like, I've seen people play King 5 here, King 5 of clubs. There's only one limper, but it's just not worth it. What are you going to do? You're going to flop a flush, and then even still, you might not even win. So see what would have happened. Let's say I had this at King 5, I probably would have called or raised or something, and then I would have been facing another bet. You can't piss away like 300, 400 chips at this level of the game. Okay, what you want to be able to do is preserve, enough of your chips so that you can leverage them later. Okay, where the blinds mean something. I mean, here at 10-20, it doesn't really mean much. I mean, so you just kind of just stay out of the way, wait for blinds to start going up, and then you start using some techniques we're going to go over. That's not to say you don't play aces, but if you're in early position, for example, you only want to be playing the best of hands. I mean, you get like a pair of queens in early position, I could even see just limping. I mean, that's how tight you want to be. You get a hand like ace king, and you are in, say, the big blind, and you get an early position raiser, and the button re-raises him, you could just dump your ace king. Where in a tournament situation, in a deep stack tournament, maybe you'll consider you would consider doing something else. So here's a perfect example. Somebody limps for 30, and I just fold ace-6 behind. This is what I consider one of the biggest leaks in all of the sit-and-go players. Not all the players, but it's a very, very big leak. Playing these ace-6, ace-rag type hands, especially in the early levels. Ace-6, ace-7, ace-8, ace-9 even, ace-10. In the early levels, these hands are just bad news. Also, your kings like king 10, king jack, even king queen sometimes, king 9. Playing these types of hands is especially early, especially in position like this, is a terrible, terrible league. And if you do nothing with these videos, if you could take just that, your ROI will probably improve like 3 or 4%. You want to reduce your play in these early levels to pairs and really nice aces. Okay, you don't want to be, in my opinion, taking limping in with these suited connectors in early position. You want to just kind of just stay out of the way. And I see people go out at the 10-20 level. Look, for you to go out 9th or 10th or in the 10-20 level, you got to have a really, really good reason. You had to have flopped a set, or had aces, kings, queens, or something. Not even queens. In the 10-20 level, there's very little excuse for you to be going out. There's so much time to leverage your skills later. All right, so here's a pair of sevens. This is exactly what you want to do with sevens. With your pairs, you want to limp. All right, you can call this. You can call this re-raise here because you are putting in 90 chips and you're getting whatever it is, 6.5 to 1 that you're going to flop your set, and that's really all you're trying to play this hand to do is flop a set. Okay. If there are other types of flops that that will end up being okay, but the reason why you're doing this is really just to flop your set. All right, so what happens? We did not flop our set, but we have a pretty good flop. Okay, we check called this. I think this is very legitimate. We have an overpair, and it's 2-3-5 on the board. Now this is actually kind of an interesting technical aside. Very recently, well, in the past year or so, I suppose, there have been a lot of people who have been playing this type of flop very aggressively with an ace, like ace queen, ace jack, or whatever, because they feel they have the double equity of getting you to fold or even catching the 4 for a straight. I think that type of play is a little bit weak, but I see a lot of people doing it. So what you can do is when you have a pair of 7s or 8s or 9s or something like that, someone bets into you, you don't always necessarily have to put him on an overpair. You could put him on these ace-jack, ace-queen, ace-king hands, when you have this type of flop, because a lot of people are making this type of semi-bluff nowadays. So we check called there, a jack comes, now we're allowed to lead out at this, and he called. And this is a very, very tough, that's a pretty tough call, but you know what? If he had an ace, again, maybe he feels he's getting the right odds to call this here. So I think it's very legitimate for us to lead out. I think it's very legitimate for him to call. But I'm a little nervous, to be honest, with what he might have. All right, so an 8 comes. We got already 1,245 in the pot. We have only 720 behind, so we are going to certainly bet into this, and he does fold. Okay. I presume he had like ace queen or even ace king or something like that. And we won a very, very nice pot. So we have 2,140 chips, and now we're in very, very good shape. Okay, we got involved with sevens. We got a very, very tricky flop, and this was the one hand that I was able to, that I had to really employ any post flop, decisions on, and that was a little bit tricky. And but again, what you can learn from that is when you get those types of flops like 2-3-5, 3-4-5, even whenever someone could have a dry ace and have that that one gut shot straight card out there, you will see a lot of people semi bluffing with that type of hand. So you don't have to be folding your overpairs that quickly when you see that texture of a flop. So now, we're in tremendous shape, and we got 2,100 chips at the 1530 level. We can afford to fold. You know what I mean? We don't have to get involved in a lot right here. Again, the 1530 level, we have 70 big blinds. That's the way you always want to look at these sit and goes in terms of big blinds, or in the alternative, when the antes come in terms of how many times the pot you have, and that's going to come into play as we get near the end game a little bit later. So again, we're on just hand 12. We can just do a little folding here, and we can actually speed up the replayer to get through this. Now again, I'm going to hope to be going over a lot of other sit and goes, and I'm going to also be going over how to calculate your fold equity and your all-in strategies. And over the next couple of months, you're really going to get a lot from me. I've worked very hard at my sit and goes, and I've put a lot of time into it, and I really hope to share quite a bit with you. And queen too, you don't want to do anything. 25-50, we're at the 25-50 level still. No need to get aggressive yet. Okay, here we go. King Jack. All right, again, huge weakness in people I see is playing hands like that with King Jack. They either get bored or they get very ambitious with what's going to happen, on the flop. Just dump these things, especially at 25-50, especially in early position. These are hands that you just want to be getting rid of, okay? And, as I might have mentioned before, this is not a game of post-flop play, the sit and goes. It's a game of pre-flop action, knowing when to raise pre-flop, when to push pre-flop, when to re-raise pre-flop, when to fold to a re-raise pre-flop. This is not really a game of post-flop play, especially at the 500 levels. And once you get up to like the 1,000 and the 5,000 levels, then as I said, you have to augment your play a little bit, but not now. All right, here we're at the 25-50 level, and I get to see the flop for free with 9-2. All right, big blind special, as they call it. It's a tremendous flop. All I can do here, though, is I have to hope somebody has an ace, and hope that they bet at it for now. So I check. He does bet at it, right? So what do I do with this guy? All right. I did just call. I guess I could have raised here, but you know what? If he does have an ace, I want him to take another shot at this. He overbet the pot. He bet 300. Okay. Maybe looking back, I could have pushed on him, but he's not calling here. If he has some kind of flush draw, he wouldn't be calling. I think he was just trying to take a stab at this pot. But if he has an ace, we're going to be in business here. So I check again, give him a chance to hang himself. It doesn't work. So then I push him all in. I put 1,000 in there, and he folds. Okay. No problem. I was hoping he had the ace. I guess he didn't. And now we're up to 2,450 chips. Okay. So again, I played two flops. Didn't play them either flop especially well, to be honest. I just played them, as I played them, and we're we're in really good shape right now. We have 2,450 chips, and the blinds are 25, 50, or we're now 50, 100, and now it's time that we're going to have to start using this leverage that we've kind of accumulated. Okay, now we have a pretty good hand. Gets folded around to us. And we make it 300. Okay. When I was going over this, I thought about this hand for a second. And I don't know why I gave this such thought, but I wonder if it was better to just push all in here. And the answer is no, but not by a lot, okay? You look at what these other guys have relative to the blinds. I mean, the big blind has 15 or 16 big blinds. The small blind has 18 big blinds. They have too much for you to be pushing all in with right now, but I have to tell you, it is getting close, right? The numbers you want to look for at this level is usually about 10 big blinds, okay? If these guys each had 10 big blinds, you want to be pushing all in here. And the reason for that, well, at least one of them, is if you, let's say they had 10 big blinds. We're going to get to an example of that later. And you made it, say, 300. If they pushed all in over the top of you, you probably would be calling anyway. So if that's the case, you may as well just put all your chips in the first place. That's one of the reasons that you want to sometimes go all in instead of just standard raising. And the other is because when you standard raise, you invite people to take shots at you. In other words, like right now, I've made it 300. If either of these two guys wanted to, they could have pushed over the top of me and really made it difficult for me to call. I think that I would never call a re-raise in this spot, given these particular stack sizes. So when you throw your 300 out there, it kind of acts sometimes as a target for people to take shots at, with hands that would have folded if you just open pushed and buried them. And it's, that goes into something I'm going to go over probably in another lecture about the gap concept as it applies to sit and goes. But, just keep in mind, just right now, it's 18 big blinds and 16 big blinds that people have. So it's not time to be pushing all in yet, but it is getting close. So we just raised, everybody folded, no problem. Okay, moving on. Now we're at the 5100 level. We have to always keep an eye on what the stack sizes are. Okay, as long as there are 15 big blinds or more, we don't have to be pushing all in on them yet. But if they get down to below, say, 10 big blinds or so, I mean, you're really going to have to start. Exuding pressure on people. Okay, so 6-9 spades. Watch them go at it. That 6-9 would have won, but who cares? Then we have the ability to kind of scroll ahead. These guys are all in again. Ace-9 versus King-Queen. Down to 7 players. Again, we are paying only 3, so we still have time, though, before we have to worry about bubble strategy. Okay, again, we have a chance to make a mistake here, and we don't. Okay, again, your ace-2s, your ace-rags are just bad. Okay, now especially when you're calling. Okay, you never want to be calling somebody's basic. This guy's basically going all in here. I mean, he had 1,100 chips and he bet 450 of them, pre-flop. I mean, it's basically the equivalent of going all in. You just don't want to even deal with these ace-2 hands at all. All right, now where we're at. Okay, now the blinds are up to 75, 150. See, now we're getting somewhere. I mean, let's look at the structure of this table. I've got 2,375 chips. The guys to my left, that is the people that I'm going to be raising, have 1660, which is about 10 big blinds, 1380, which is about 9 big blinds. So now I am at a point where if it does get folded to me, all right, I can really consider pushing all in. Okay, I'm calling a re-raise anyway, and I want to make these people fold hands that they otherwise would consider playing. I don't have to call a raise with 4-3, of course. All right, now we have Queen Jack, and we're on the button. Okay, now I decided to take a shot at seeing this flop here because, and only because, the guy who limped. All right, here's the theory. The guy limped for 150. I have to think that if he had any type of hands, okay, he probably would have raised because these small blinds, the small blind and the big blind, are very short, okay, and they're very hesitant to call a lot. So what you want to do, if you had a hand, and if you were player 9, you had a hand, is you would not want to come in for a limp at this point. You would want to come in for a raise. We're only 7-handed. So on the button, I have a hand like Queen Jack. I have the chips where I can make this type of call. And not only that, but I can make this call against the chip leader. In other words, this is the only guy who I can double up against, the only guy who I can really get a lot of chips from. So if I can see this flop for 150, which is not that much of my stack, and I have the button, right, this is, I think, a decent time to see this type of flop. Now, Queen Jack's not the greatest hand, and I'm going to need to flop something good, but, all right, so beautiful. So the flop comes Queen 6-7. It gets checked around, and I bet at it. Okay, first of all, just kind of a matter of, again, a technical point here. That flop with the 6-7 out there is pretty dangerous for me, just because of all the possible straights that are out there with all the limpers. So I don't want him to get cute and check behind here. Also, I don't want there to be another diamond or another spade or another type straight card come to give someone the opportunity to make a semi-bluff all-in at this pot, which would force me to fold. So it checks around to me, and I will take a shot at this. I will bet the 300, thinking I have the best hand, but also thinking that I'm going to get people to fold. Okay, so the guy called, right? So now a very nasty card comes. It's 6-7-9. There are a lot of straight cards out there. But look where we're involved. We have top pair, where it's 1,200 in the pot. We really want to win this pot here. So he checks, which is an incredible sign of weakness on that board, and we just take the pot down with a very easy 600 chip bet. So where are we at? Right now we have 3,125 chips at the 75-150 level, and we are in a perfect strategic situation. We have these short stacks on our left, okay? We got a 1,500 chip stack, an 1,100 chip stack. The 2,300 chip stack is way out of the way, and he's technically 3 to our right. He's also 3 to our left, whatever, but he's across the table from us. So we are in an excellent, excellent position right now. All right, so we got 2 guys limp. So what do you do with ace-king? There's only one thing you can do with ace-king right here, and that's you have to push all in. You cannot call here. You cannot make it 600 because you're not folding to a re-raise anyway. And one thing to keep in mind is when you do have ace-king, you are going to want to see all 5 cards. Okay, that's a very important point that a lot of writers have gone over in the past. I just wanted to emphasize here. One of the reasons why an all-in move with ace-king is never really a bad idea is that you want to see all 5 cards. A lot of your equity from ace-king is going to come from seeing all 5 cards. So you don't want to just flat call or encourage a flop of some kind, where if you don't flop your ace-king immediately, you might get priced out of even seeing the last 2 cards. A good rule of thumb is if you have a made hand, like a pair or something, you only need to see 3 cards. Whereas if you have an unmade hand of some kind, you want to go out of your way to see all 5 cards. So, pretty sure I went all in, and I did. This is a huge, huge pot. Think about this. 150, 300, 450, 525 chip pot is a very, very, very big pot at this point. All right, so we have 3,650 chips. We're doing great. Don't get cute with King 9. You don't have to. The only guy who could hurt you is in the big blind there. You don't need to encourage him to make some kind of loose call. Then we can skip ahead if we want. And it's funny, we still have a full 7 people in at the 75-150 level. I mean, the dominoes have to fall eventually here. Ooh, got caught as straight. That's pretty nasty. Yeah, no need to play King 9 there. Want to call with Queen 8, of course. Oh, wow, we might have been ahead. No. Okay. We have 6-7. We're in the small blind. It gets folded to us. Now the blinds are 100, 200. That means that it's very unlikely that anybody's going to have more than 10 times the big blind. Okay, so you do not want to let anybody off the hook here. Okay, now it gets folded around the small blind, and I have whatever. I have 6-7. I can have 6-2 or whatever. I'm not folding. Okay, if there's one person left to act behind me, and he's only got 10 big blinds, which is basically what we're risking here. There's 300 chips to be made. There is no way that I am folding the small blind in a million years. Okay? Now, do I have to push all in? No, not yet. Again, he's got about 11 big blinds. He's not under that 10 big blind kind of threshold yet, so I don't have to push all in with 6-7, but I'm certainly not going to let him off the hook. I mean, you just don't want to give someone a walk at these levels. I mean, and again, the guy's got, it's 100, 200. I'm going to come in for a raise, but it's not necessary for me to go all in. If this guy comes over the top of me right now, I'm certainly going to fold, so there's no need to push all in. So I make it just the 600, and the guy, I think, folded. Yeah, the guy folded. And, the aggression continues. Remember, he's looking, let's think about this for a second. He is looking at me as kind of someone who, damn it, the guy's going to be raising me all the time. I'm going to have to deal with him. I'm going to have to get my chips from somebody else, okay? So if he's looking at me that way, I'm certainly going to take advantage of that. He's got other guys that he can get chips from. He doesn't need to be tangling with me. So if I made it 600 there, he would happily, I wouldn't say happily, but he would be folding to me. I mean, I remember even live tournaments, WPT events at Foxwoods, which I played and did very well in a couple of months ago. There was a guy to my right who was, a very, very aggressive raiser, and he had a lot of chips, and I just knew that when it would come to his small blind, he would raise, and you know what? I wouldn't mind just folding because I had other places to get my chips from. There was no need for me to tangle with him, and it's not, it's not an ego game. You want to, establish where your chips are going to come from. And, this guy's got to really fold a lot of hands to me there. Again, we're down to 6 people. They're paying 3, so there's no need to, we're not in the bubble yet. Somebody made it 2 times, which I really dislike. He encouraged a call. Let's see if it, nah, he did win the pot. Usually when people make bad plays, the poker god's punishment is very swift. Again, ace-3 of spades. Again, fold, fold, fold. Bad hand, bad hand, bad hand. Okay? We're 6-handed. It's not like we're 3-handed. We can still fold aces. We can still fold an ace here. Very, very much appreciated walk with 7-4 in the big blind. Certainly not calling with king 7 there. Okay, certainly not calling it all in. And there's a huge difference between a hand that's needed to call it all in versus one that's needed to push all in yourself. I mean, this is very standard type stuff, and we're going to go over more of that, maybe not in this video, but in another one later. Ace 9 runs right into queens. I should say queens runs right into ace 9. Okay, now we have ace 10. It's still the 100, 200 level, so we have to deal with a bunch of people with with some chips here. I mean, one guy's got 10 big blinds, another guy's got 11 big blinds, another guy's got about 9 big blinds, another guy's got 9 big blinds. It's pretty even stacks across, so you don't have to be pushing yet. Okay, you can still get away with making the standard type raise, especially from out of position like this. All right, so we're moving right along. We have 4,000 chips, but again, as you can see, I mean, everybody's got enough to where they can really damage us. So, anything can happen here. Okay, well, ace king versus jacks, and the ace king is drawing down. So. That bust this guy? No, almost. And ace 3 of clubs. Certainly not going to call with this. Okay. Let's stop a second. It's going to get folded around to me. Now we are at a point where, again, you're just looking at stack sizes and figuring out what the best play is. Okay, again, don't worry about much anything else. Just look at stack sizes. It's going to get folded around to me, and the big blind has about 5 big blinds exactly. Okay, about 1,035 chips. Right. At this point, if someone has 5 big blinds and they're one to your left, you can be pushing in on them every single hand with any 2 cards. Okay, and the math kind of works out. And I don't know if I'm going to go over that today or another time, but for now, it's a very neat rule of thumb. Especially on the bubble. Okay, but even not on the bubble. I mean, the guy can't really call all too much. All right. Remember, he's got 5 big blinds, so he can fold and still maintain fold equity. Remember, we went over that 5 big blind threshold earlier. If he folds, he's not in bad shape. So that means that he's not in a desperate enough situation where he can call with any 2 cards. Right. So that's point 1, is that he is still folding a lot of hands. And at the 1-2 level, with also an ante, there's 450 chips in the pot. Okay, you're only risking an extra. You're only risking 1,235 chips total, right? Actually the 100 to complete plus an additional 1,035. You're risking 1,135 chips to win 450. Even if you knew that he was going to be calling you with a whole bunch of hands, it's still a positive equity play to do this. Now again, I don't think I'm going to go over all the ICM calculators and all of the push fold equities right now. That'll be for kind of a future lecture. But just take it for what it's worth now. If a person has between 5 and maybe 8 or 9 big blinds, and he's the only person left to act, right? You could be pushing all in on him with any 2 cards. Now again, you have the big stack here. That goes for you too. In other words, if you only have 5.5 big blinds or so, you should be pushing all in with any 2 cards also. So it gets folded. I do push all in, and he calls with king 9. Very tough call there, give him credit. So what did we do? We did the right thing, and and we just lost the hand. I mean, what can you do?